And it's a government which is a government of scams, a government of cover-ups, a government doesn't want an inquiry into anything, a government which has created an infrastructure of cover-ups. Today there is a stalemate everybody is talking about in Parliament. And the stalemate is, why do we want a joint parliamentary committee? And I have still not found a convincing reply coming from the government as to why we must not have a joint parliamentary committee. The Controller and Auditor General, the CAG, is only an auditor of government accounts. Just as every company has an internal auditor, the CAG is an internal auditor of the government. The CAG can merely tell you, this is how the accounts have been manipulated, this is the lapses, this is the losses which could have been avoided. He can only give you accounting advice, he can give you auditing advice. Is the 2G scam only an auditing problem? The Public Accounts Committee, which will now go into the CAG report, will only look at what the CAG has said and give a parawise comment on what the CAG has said. Now, what are the dimensions of the scam? You have now, in newspapers, television channels, magazines, tapes, telephone recordings recorded by the government, power brokers and lobbyists at the behest of business houses wanted to make sure that the telecommunication portfolio goes only to one political party. So under this government, the allocation of portfolio is being done through power brokers and industrial houses. Within that political party, we want X to get it and not Y to get it. So look at the magnitude of the scam. The Prime Minister ultimately has the prerogative to decide who gets what. But this is now being dictated by power brokers and lobbyists, who will now decide and lobby. You have editors acting as power brokers, acting as messengers. When you have this kind of an activity going on, and finally you find that the telecom portfolio goes to the same person. How did the scam take place? Spectrum is a valuable national resource, asset. In 2001, it was auctioned. At that time, the telecom sector was very small. And if you realize, the size was so small that in 1994-95, when the telecom sector opened up in this country, India's tele-density was 0.8%. That is 0.8 out of 100 people had a telephone. Just 16 years ago. In 2001, it was still not 10%. Today it is 60 plus. So in 2008, you decide to give it to 9 companies, but at the 2001 price. Who are these 9 companies? Not experienced telecom operators of the world, but all real estate people. The day these people buy the spectrum and get a license, within days they enter into foreign partnerships, because telecom sector allows a 74% foreign partnership equity. And for entering into foreign partnership, you pay 1,651 crores, and next day the company is valued at 9,500 crores. So you buy something for 1651, you sell 74% of it, which should be 1200, but you actually sell it for 7,000 plus. So for each license, we lost, our calculation last year when we raised it in Parliament was we lost 7,000 crores each, and 9 of them we lost 60,000. The CAG says if you take the 3G spectrum value, it may be 1,76,000 crores. And for an open and shut case, for 1.5 years the opposition has been agitating. He continues to be the minister. If we had not created a stalemate in Parliament, probably he would not have resigned. And today we are told all these issues, who decided to allocate the portfolio for him? What was the role of the lobbyists in the industrial houses? What was the corruption in this? An auditor is enough to decide all this. Are these auditing issues? These are all issues. Frankly, we have no faith even in bodies like the CAG and the CVC. This Prime Minister has created an infrastructure of cover-up. The CBI has been used repeatedly for covering up cases against government functionaries, UPA partners, and persecuting people in the opposition. Who do they appoint as the CVC? Our colleague Sushma ji puts a written note of dissent. The officer appointed the Chief Vigilance Commissioner, who is supposed to be the man who will be the chief priest of this government to see that there is no corruption. He is being prosecuted for corruption case himself. He is the former telecom secretary who tried to cover up the whole 2G. In fact, he wrote to the law ministry saying, please give us legal opinion that CAG and CVC have no power over telecom policy issues like 2G spectrum allotment. These are the uncomfortable questions now the court is arguing. Did you not find a better man than him? You create so when you say that the normal agencies of the government which are supposed to check corruption have been converted into instruments of cover-up. So we are told on basis of an auditor's report, let a parliamentary committee, the public accounts committee go into these questions. But who will go into the question of corruption? Who will be going to the question of the conduct of the Prime Minister as to how this was allocated? And how did he keep quiet for the last 1.5, 2 years when this was being repeatedly brought to his notice that the government of India had suffered a loss? This ruling party is a party of hypocrites. When there was a downturn in the economy, they all said, yes, once in our lifetime we will travel on a low-cost airline. And our friends in the media were gullible enough to buy this. And they said, so-and-so is traveling in a train and so is traveling in a economy class ticket. And next day all was forgotten. Today they have said, they have caused loss of 1,76,000 crores. So those who have caused this loss now want to make a sacrifice. And the sacrifice is, we will not claim our parliamentary allowance which totals up to, for Congress party, 5,80,000 rupees. So 1,76,000 crores is the loss. The sacrifice per day they are now going to make is 5,80,000 rupees for 280 Congress MPs of both houses of parliament. This is the state of corruption. Commonwealth Games was a great international festival in India. China organized the Olympic Games and the world saw the power of China to organize a global event. And India organizes Commonwealth Games and there is a complete environment of negativity because every contract is tainted with corruption. Stadiums are being built at 5 times the cost. Your city, we are speaking in Hyderabad. Hyderabad has built one of the most beautiful cricket stadiums recently. I don't know, some of you must have seen it. One of the most beautiful ones I found out from here, what is the cost? They said 85 crores. 85 crores. Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium renovation cost 961 crores. Can anybody say that your Hyderabad stadium is in any way inferior for an international event? 85 crores is the total cost. So too other stadiums built by private agencies outside the government. Our Dhyan Chand Stadium, which is called the National Stadium, built in 1952, capacity has been increased from 13,000 to 17,000. Cost of increasing 4,000 sitting capacity, 350 crores. This is the extent of corruption, a national loot. One can stop counting as to the number of events which have taken place. And the Congress party president has the audacity to say, well, X, Y, and Z, so many of my people have resigned because of when you made allegations of corruption. Your people have not resigned. Well, obviously you have more people who are corrupt, therefore more will resign. You can't take comfort out of the fact that you have more corrupt people and more have resigned. It's a national disgrace that your people have had to resign when caught in corruption. This is the state where you are taking the country. This is the kind of policy that you are providing this country with. And what is your solution to this problem? Just now, 3 days ago, the Bihar election results 4 days ago were declared. Bihar unquestionably was, in terms of development, one of the most backward states in the country. The state had its own serious problems. 40 years of Congress rule, 15 years of Lalu Prasad's rule. The plight of the state was, I remember in 2005 when I used to go for campaigning, we could not go from one town to another by road because the roads didn't exist. It was worse than sub-Saharan Africa. We were advised to be back home in our hotel rooms before 6 o'clock because it is not safe to be on the streets after that time. This time when we went, every city in 5 years, village had been connected. Do you realize the meaning of this mandate? Every city had been connected, every village had been connected with roads. And in just 5 years. $50,000 people, all organized mafias have been convicted by courts. Kidnappings, ransom, all that is history. In this situation, if we went to a public meeting, the most beautiful sight at a public meeting was that in a poor state where people did not have regular clothes to wear, there used to be hundreds of school children in blue clothes. The state is providing books, uniform, bicycles to students, and in 5 years, 5 times is the increase of number of children in schools. Every morning you go at 7 o'clock, you see young girls, students on a bicycle going. Who were the two leaders? Nitish Kumar, Sushil Modi. Came together in JP's movement, went to jail during emergency, struggled, got into state assembly, got into parliament. One was a central minister, one was leader of opposition in assembly. Struggled for 30, 40 years and became leaders. What was the response of the two parties who had ruined Bihar? 40 years was Congress and 15 years was RJD. What do you have to offer as against these two who have changed the face of Bihar? Well, we have a glamour of families to offer. So Bihar में किशन रेड्डी जी वो कहते थे, एक पति पत्नी की पार्टी है, एक माँ बेटे की पार्टी है. They did not realize that the script of Bihar had changed. There was a different script in the election.